The sound of her father's voice haggling over her like she was nothing more than livestock made Lily Carson's stomach turn to ice in the dusty Arizona trading post. It was late spring in 1878, and she stood there in the corner of the wooden building, her hands trembling as she listened to the gruff voices negotiate her future like she was a piece of property no different from the sacks of grain stacked against the wall. She can cook, clean, and she's strong enough to work a full day without complaint, her father said, his weathered face showing no emotion as he gestured toward her with a dismissive wave. And she's young enough to give a man plenty of years of service. The man her father was speaking to was a squat, mean-looking trader named Hoskins who ran freight between the Arizona territories and California. He had small, calculating eyes that kept darting toward Lily, assessing her the way he might assess a mule. She wanted to run, to scream, to do anything but stand there accepting this fate, but where would she go? Her mother had died 2 years ago, and her father had spent every cent they had on whiskey and card games. Now he was trading her to settle his debts, and there was not a soul in this God-forsaken corner of the territory who would lift a finger to help her. "A horse, a wagon, and $50, Hoskins finally said, spitting tobacco juice onto the floor. "That's my final offer. Take it or leave it." Her father's eyes lit up with a greedy shine. "Deal." Lily felt the world tilt beneath her feet. She had known this moment was coming ever since her father had dragged her out of their ramshackle cabin that morning, but hearing the actual transaction made it devastatingly real. She was worth a horse, a wagon, and $50. That was the sum total of her value to the man who had given her life. Hoskins walked over to her, his breath reeking of tobacco and rot-gut whiskey. "You'll do as you're told, girl. I've got a freight business to run, and you'll earn your keep or you'll find yourself left in the desert for the buzzards." "Understood." She wanted to spit in his face, but survival instinct kept her silent. She nodded once, her jaw clenched so tight it ached. The next 3 days were a blur of misery. Hoskins loaded his wagon with supplies and goods he was transporting to California, and Lily was expected to help with the heavy lifting despite her exhaustion. They traveled westward through the unforgiving Arizona landscape, the sun beating down mercilessly during the day and the temperatures dropping to bone-chilling cold at night. Hoskins barely gave her enough food to survive, and when she stumbled from exhaustion, he would curse at her and threaten to leave her behind. On the 4th day, they stopped at a small settlement near the California border to take on water and rest the horses. Lily was carrying a heavy crate toward the wagon when she nearly collided with a tall man in dusty cowboy attire. She looked up, an apology on her lips, and found herself staring into the bluest eyes she had ever seen. "Careful there, miss," the cowboy said, steadying her with a gentle hand on her elbow. He had dark hair that curled slightly at the edges beneath his worn hat, and a strong jaw shadowed with several days' worth of stubble. There was something kind in his expression, something that made her chest ache with a longing she could not name. "I'm sorry," she managed, her voice hoarse from lack of water. "I didn't see you. No harm done." He studied her face with concern, taking in her sunburned cheeks and cracked lips. "You look like you could use some water. There's a pump just over there." "She doesn't have time for water," Hoskins barked, appearing beside them with his usual scowl. "She's got work to do. Mind your own business, stranger." The cowboy's expression hardened, and he straightened to his full height, which was considerable. "I was just offering the lady some basic courtesy. Seems like that's in short supply around here." "The lady is my property," Hoskins sneered, grabbing Lily's arm roughly. "So you can take your courtesy and shove it." Something dangerous flashed in the cowboy's eyes. "Your property?" "That's right. Bought and paid for fair and square. Now, unless you've got business with me, I suggest you move along." Lily felt the cowboy's gaze on her, assessing the situation. She could see the anger building in his expression, the tension in his shoulders. She wanted to beg him for help, but what could one stranger do against the cruel hand that fate had dealt her? "How much did you pay for her?" the cowboy asked quietly. Hoskins laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "What's it to you? Because I'm interested in making you an offer." Lily's heart began to pound. She looked up at this stranger, this cowboy with the kind eyes and the steady voice, and felt something shift in her chest. Hope was a dangerous thing, but it bloomed there anyway. Hoskins studied the cowboy with renewed interest, his greedy mind already calculating. "I paid a horse, a wagon, and $50 for her, but she's proven useful, so I'd need more than that to part with her." The cowboy reached into his pocket and pulled out a leather pouch. "I've got $200 in gold right here. That should more than cover your investment and then some." $200 was more money than Lily had ever seen in her life. Hoskins's eyes went wide, and she could practically see him salivating at the prospect. "Well now," Hoskins said slowly, "that's a mighty generous offer. But how do I know that gold is real?" The cowboy opened the pouch and poured a handful of gold coins into his palm, letting them catch the sunlight. They gleamed with unmistakable authenticity. "Real as it gets. Fresh from the California gold fields. Do we have a deal?" Hoskins did not hesitate. "Deal." He released Lily's arm and snatched the pouch from the cowboy's hand, immediately checking its contents. The cowboy turned to Lily, his expression softening. "You're free now, miss. He's got no more claim on you." She stared at him in shock, unable to process what had just happened. You bought me." "No," he said firmly. "I bought your freedom. There's a difference. You don't belong to anyone, especially not to me. You're your own person, and you can do whatever you want now." Tears stung her eyes, and she blinked them back fiercely. She would not cry, not here, not in front of Hoskins, who would take pleasure in her emotion. "Why would you do this? You don't even know me." "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "No person should be traded like property. It's not right, and I won't stand by and watch it happen when I have the means to stop it." Hoskins had already started walking away, clutching his pouch of gold. The cowboy called after him, "If I hear about you doing this again to anyone, I'll make sure the law hears about it. Human trafficking is illegal, even out here." Hoskins waved a dismissive hand and disappeared around the corner of a building, leaving Lily standing there with her rescuer. "My name's Wyatt Parker," the cowboy said, offering his hand. "And before you ask, I'm not expecting anything from you. You're free to go wherever you want, do whatever you want. I just couldn't let him keep treating you like that." She took his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. "I'm Lily Carson, and I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. Thank you is plenty." He released her hand and gestured toward the settlement. "There's a boarding house here run by a good woman named Mrs. Henderson. I can give you enough money to stay there for a few weeks while you figure out what you want to do. Maybe find some work in one of the nearby towns." "I don't want your charity," she said quickly, her pride flaring despite her desperate circumstances. "You've already done more than enough." Wyatt smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "It's not charity. Think of it as an investment in basic human decency. Besides, you look like you could use a hot meal and a real bed. When was the last time you had either?" She could not remember. The past few days had been a nightmare of exhaustion and hunger. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "Then let me at least get you settled at Mrs. Henderson's. After that, what you do is entirely up to you. I promise, no strings attached." Lily studied his face, searching for any sign of deception or ulterior motive. She had been around enough men in her 21 years to recognize the look of someone who wanted something from her. But Wyatt's expression held only genuine concern and kindness. It was so foreign to her recent experience that she almost did not trust it. But what choice did she have? "All right," she said finally. "But I intend to pay you back every cent, Mr. Parker. I don't know how long it will take, but I will. Call me Wyatt," he said, tipping his hat. "And we can worry about all that later. Right now, let's get you some food and rest." He led her through the small settlement to a clean, whitewashed building with a sign that read, "Henderson's Boarding House." The woman who answered the door was plump and motherly, with kind eyes and flour on her apron. "Wyatt Parker," she exclaimed with obvious pleasure. "I haven't seen you in months. What brings you through these parts?" "Hello, Mrs. Henderson. I'm actually on my way to Watsonville, California, but I ran into a situation that needs your particular brand of kindness." He explained Lily's circumstances in brief, tactful terms, leaving out the worst details but making it clear she needed help. Mrs. Henderson's expression shifted from friendly to fiercely protective. She took Lily's hands in her own warm ones and said, "You poor dear, don't you worry about a thing. I've got a lovely room available and I'll make sure you get proper meals and rest. Wyatt, you're a good man for helping this young lady." "I'm just doing what's right," Wyatt said, shifting uncomfortably at the praise. He pulled out some money and handed it to Mrs. Henderson. "This should cover a few weeks, plus meals." "That's far too much," Mrs. Henderson protested, but Wyatt was already backing toward the door. "Use whatever is left over for anything Miss Carson might need," he said. He touched the brim of his hat toward Lily. "You take care of yourself, Lily Carson. I wish you all the best." He turned to leave, and Lily felt a sudden panic rise in her chest. This man had saved her, had shown her more kindness in the past hour than she had experienced in years, and he was just walking away. She hurried after him, catching him on the front step. "Wyatt, wait." He turned, surprised. "Yes, you said you're heading to Watsonville. When?" "I'm planning to leave tomorrow morning. I've got a job waiting for me at a ranch outside of town. Could I come with you?" The words tumbled out before she could think them through. "I mean, if you're heading that way anyway and if there might be work in Watsonville. I don't want to stay here taking charity. I want to start over somewhere new, somewhere nobody knows me." Wyatt hesitated, and she could see him weighing the decision. "It's a long journey, at least a week on horseback, and I'd be traveling fast." "I can ride," she said quickly. "My mother taught me when I was young, and I'm stronger than I look. I won't slow you down, I promise." "It's not that," Wyatt said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I just don't want you to feel like you owe me anything, or like you have to stick with me out of obligation." "I don't feel obligated," Lily said, and she realized it was true. "I just think that maybe this is an opportunity for a fresh start. And honestly, you seem like a decent person, which is more than I can say for most people I've known. If you're willing to let me travel with you, I'd be grateful." She could see him considering, his blue eyes searching her face. Finally, he nodded. "All right, but we do this proper. You stay here tonight, get some rest and a good meal. I'll arrange for a horse for you and we'll leave at first light. Mrs. Henderson can provide you with any supplies you might need for the journey." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you, Wyatt. You won't regret this." "I hope neither of us will," he said with a slight smile. "Get some rest, Lily. Tomorrow starts early." That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in what felt like forever, Lily stared at the ceiling and wondered what she had gotten herself into. She knew nothing about Wyatt Parker beyond the fact that he had rescued her from a terrible situation. He could be anyone, could have any number of secrets or flaws. But something in her gut told her that he was exactly what he appeared to be, a good man in a world that seemed increasingly short on them. She fell asleep thinking about his blue eyes and the gentle way he had spoken to her, and for the first time in months, she did not have nightmares. Wyatt arrived at the boarding house just as the sun was painting the eastern sky with streaks of pink and gold. He brought with him a sturdy roan mare with a kind eye and a gentle disposition. "Her name's Rosie," he said as he helped Lily adjust the stirrups. "She's well-trained and even-tempered. She'll take good care of you." "She's beautiful," Lily said, running her hand down the mare's neck. The horse nickered softly, already responding to her touch. Mrs. Henderson had packed them provisions for the journey, refusing to take any additional payment despite Wyatt's protests. "You just make sure this girl gets to Watsonville safe and sound," she said firmly. "That's payment enough." They set out as the settlement was waking up, riding westward into the rising sun. The landscape was harsh and beautiful, all red rock and scrub brush, with mountains rising in the distance. Lily had spent most of her life in one place, rarely traveling beyond the boundaries of her small world. Now, heading toward an unknown future with a stranger who had become her unlikely savior, she felt something she had not experienced in years' hope. They rode in comfortable silence for the first few hours. Wyatt set a steady pace, not too fast but purposeful, and Lily found that despite her exhaustion from the previous days, she could keep up easily. Rosie was indeed a wonderful horse, responsive to her slightest command and sure-footed on the uneven terrain. Around midday, they stopped to rest the horses and eat some of the food Mrs. Henderson had packed. They found shade beneath a cluster of rocks, and Wyatt handed Lily some jerky and bread along with a canteen of water. "You're doing well," he said approvingly. "Some people aren't used to long days in the saddle, but you're handling it like you've been riding all your life." "My mother loved horses," Lily said, surprised at how easily the words came. She rarely spoke about her mother to anyone. "She used to say that a woman who could ride could go anywhere, do anything. She taught me everything she knew before she passed." "Sounds like she was a wise woman," Wyatt said gently. "She was." Lily took a sip of water, gathering her courage for the question she had been wanting to ask all morning. "Wyatt, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why were you carrying that much gold? $200 is a fortune." "Most cowboys don't have that kind of money just sitting in their pocket." Wyatt was quiet for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I worked the goldfields in California for 3 years, he finally said. "Came out from Texas when I was 19, full of dreams about striking it rich. Most men go their whole lives without finding anything, but I got lucky. Found a decent vein and worked it carefully, saved every penny I could. I was planning to use that money to buy my own ranch, build something permanent instead of always drifting from job to job." Lily felt her stomach drop. "And you spent it all on me." "I spent it on doing the right thing," Wyatt corrected. "There will be other chances to save money, other opportunities, but I couldn't have lived with myself if I'd walked away and let Hoskins keep you in that situation." "Money comes and goes, Lily, but your conscience is something you have to live with every day." She looked at him, really looked at him, seeing not just the handsome cowboy who had rescued her but the genuine goodness underneath. It was rare, that kind of integrity, and it made her chest ache with an emotion she was not ready to name. "I will pay you back," she said firmly. "Every cent, even if it takes me years. I promise you that, Wyatt." He smiled at her, that warm smile that transformed his face. "How about we make a deal instead?" "What kind of deal?" "You don't owe me the money back, but you do owe me something else. You owe it to yourself to build a good life, to take this second chance and make something of it. That's what I want from you, Lily Carson. Promise me you won't waste this opportunity." Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I promise," she whispered. "Then we're even," Wyatt said, standing and brushing the dust from his pants. "We should get moving. I want to make good progress before nightfall." They continued westward, crossing into California as the sun began its descent. The landscape gradually changed, the harsh desert giving way to rolling hills dotted with oak trees. It was more beautiful than anything Lily had imagined, and she found herself relaxing in the saddle, letting Rosie follow Wyatt's horse along the well-worn trail. That evening they made camp near a stream, and Wyatt showed Lily how to properly care for the horses and set up for the night. He was patient and thorough in his explanations, never condescending or impatient when she asked questions. "You're a good teacher," she said as they sat by the fire later, eating beans and coffee that Wyatt had prepared. "I had good teachers," he replied. "When I first came west, I didn't know the first thing about surviving out here, but I met people along the way who took the time to show me the ropes, and I figured it's only right to pass that knowledge along." "Tell me about Texas," Lily said, curious about his life before they met. "What was it like growing up there?" Wyatt stared into the fire, his expression thoughtful. "I grew up on a small ranch outside of San Antonio. My parents worked hard their whole lives, but we never had much. When they both died of fever within a month of each other, I was 17. My older brother inherited the ranch, and there wasn't room for both of us to make a living from it. So I headed west, looking for opportunity." "Do you ever go back to see your brother?" "Not in years. We had a falling out before I left. He thought I was abandoning the family, running away from responsibility. But I knew that ranch could barely support one family, let alone two. I thought I was doing the right thing, giving him space to build his life without me being a burden." "That doesn't sound like running away," Lily said softly. "That sounds like sacrifice." Wyatt looked at her, something warm and appreciative in his eyes. "I appreciate you saying that. I've spent a lot of years wondering if I made the right choice." "Well, if you had stayed in Texas, you wouldn't have been in that settlement yesterday," Lily pointed out. "And I'd still be with Hoskins, probably being worked to death or worse. So I, for one, am glad you made the choices you did." He smiled at her across the fire, and Lily felt her heart do a strange little flip in her chest. She told herself it was just gratitude, just the natural response to someone who had saved her life. But deep down, she knew it was something more, something that both thrilled and terrified her. They traveled for 5 more days, falling into an easy rhythm of riding during the day and camping at night. With each passing day, Lily felt herself growing stronger, more confident. The bruises from Hoskins's rough treatment faded, and the haunted look in her eyes gradually disappeared, replaced by a spark of life that had been missing for far too long. Wyatt was easy company. He did not talk just to fill silence, but when they did converse, he listened to her with genuine interest. He told her stories about his adventures in the goldfields, about the characters he had met, and the harsh beauty of the mountains. She told him about her mother, about the happy childhood she had enjoyed before everything fell apart. She even told him about her father's descent into drinking and gambling, though she still could not bring herself to speak about the worst moments. On their 6th night on the trail, they camped in a small grove of oak trees. The evening was warm and pleasant, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of grass and wildflowers. After they had eaten, Lily walked down to the stream to wash her face and hands, and when she returned to the camp, she found Wyatt sitting on a fallen log, staring up at the stars. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. "Not at all." He shifted to make room for her on the log. They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, both looking up at the vast expanse of stars overhead. The sky seemed endless out here, far from any town or settlement, just the two of them and the wilderness. "Lily," Wyatt said eventually, his voice quiet and serious. "I want to ask you something, but I don't want you to feel any pressure to answer a particular way." Her heart began to beat faster. "All right. When we get to Watsonville, I'll help you find a place to stay and look for work, just like I promised. But I was thinking, the ranch where I'll be working is pretty big and they're usually looking for help. They need someone to cook for the hands, help with the house, that sort of thing. If you're interested, I could put in a good word for you. It would be honest work, fair pay, and you'd have a place to stay." "You do that for me?" she asked, touched by his continued generosity. "I would. But Lily, I need you to understand something. If you take that job, it won't be because of me. You'd be hired on your own merits and you'd be your own person. I don't want you to feel like you're following me or dependent on me. I just thought it might be a good opportunity." Lily turned to look at him, studying his profile in the starlight. Over the past week, she had come to know him better than she had known most people in her life. She knew he was kind and honest, patient and strong. She knew he laughed easily but took promises seriously. She knew the way he tilted his head when he was thinking, and the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. And she knew, with a certainty that both frightened and exhilarated her, that she was falling in love with him. "Wyatt," she said softly, "I need to be honest with you." He turned to meet her gaze. "About what?" "I don't feel dependent on you, and I don't feel obligated to follow you, but I do want to take that job if it's available. Not because I'm trying to stay close to you or because I think I need your protection. I want to take it because I think Watsonville might be a good place for a fresh start, and because—" She hesitated, gathering her courage. "Because I like being around you. You make me feel safe, but not in a helpless way. You make me feel like I could be strong, like I could build the kind of life my mother would have wanted for me." Wyatt's expression softened, and he reached out to gently take her hand. "You are strong, Lily. You've survived things that would have broken most people. And for what it's worth, I like being around you too. This past week has been, well, it's been good. Really good." Their faces were close now, and Lily could feel the warmth radiating from him. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Wyatt, I know this is probably too soon, and I know you didn't rescue me so that I'd feel like I owe you anything, but I need to tell you something." "You can tell me anything," he said, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. "When you paid for my freedom, you said I was worth more than that horse and wagon my father traded me for. But you spent $200 in gold, money you'd worked 3 years to save. You gave up your dream of owning a ranch just to help a stranger. Do you have any idea what that means to me? Do you understand what it feels like to be valued that way after being treated like nothing for so long?" "Lily," he said softly, reaching up to brush a strand of hair from her face. "You're worth more than gold. You're worth more than any amount of money I could have offered that man. You're smart and brave and beautiful, and any man who couldn't see that is a fool." The words hung in the air between them, charged with meaning. Lily felt tears slip down her cheeks, but they were not tears of sadness or pain. They were tears of relief, of hope, of something wonderful beginning to bloom in her heart. "You really think that?" she whispered. "I know it," Wyatt said firmly. Then, with infinite gentleness, he leaned forward and kissed her. It was soft and sweet, a question and an answer all at once. Lily felt something inside her that had been broken begin to heal, felt the fear and pain of the past few weeks begin to fade in the warmth of his touch. She kissed him back, her hand coming up to rest against his chest, feeling his heart beating as rapidly as her own. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Wyatt rested his forehead against hers, his hands cradling her face gently. "I didn't plan on this," he admitted with a soft laugh. "When I made you that offer yesterday, I swear I had no ulterior motives. I just wanted to help." "I know," Lily said, smiling through her tears. "That's one of the reasons I'm falling in love with you." He pulled back slightly to look into her eyes, his expression wondering. "You're falling in love with me. Is that all right?" she asked, suddenly nervous. "I know it's fast, and I know we barely know each other, but I can't help how I feel." "It's more than all right," Wyatt said, his face breaking into that beautiful smile she had come to cherish. "Because I'm falling in love with you too. I think I started falling the moment you looked up at me in that settlement with those fierce, brave eyes." They kissed again, longer this time, and Lily felt the last walls around her heart crumble. She had been through so much darkness, so much pain, but here in this man's arms under the vast canopy of stars, she finally felt like she was home. They sat together for hours, talking quietly and stealing kisses, planning the future they might build together in Watsonville. Wyatt told her about the town, how it was growing and prosperous, surrounded by good farmland and close to the coast. He told her about the ranch where he would be working, how the owner was a fair man who treated his employees well. "I want to do this right," Wyatt said as the night grew late. "I want to court you proper, Lily. I want to give you the time to heal and figure out who you are now that you're free. I don't want you to ever feel rushed or pressured." "I appreciate that," Lily said, touched by his consideration. "But Wyatt, I'm not some fragile flower that's going to shatter at the first strong wind. What happened to me was terrible, but I'm not broken. I'm angry and I'm determined and I'm ready to start living again. So yes, let's take our time and do this right, but don't treat me like I'm made of glass." He laughed, pulling her close. "Fair enough, though I reserve the right to be overprotective occasionally." "As long as it's occasionally and not constantly," she teased, and they both laughed. That night, lying in her bedroll with the sound of Wyatt's steady breathing nearby, Lily felt more content than she had in years. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, that uncertainty felt exciting rather than terrifying. They reached Watsonville on a warm afternoon in early June. The town was larger than Lily had expected, with several streets lined with wooden buildings, shops, and houses. There was a church with a white steeple, a schoolhouse, and even a small newspaper office. It looked like a real community, the kind of place where a person could put down roots and build a life. Wyatt led them to a boarding house run by a widow named Mrs. Patterson. She was younger than Mrs. Henderson, probably in her mid-30s, with a no-nonsense manner and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "I have a room available," she said after Wyatt explained that Lily was new to town and looking for work. "It's small but clean, and meals are included in the rent. I charge $8 a month, payable in advance." "I can pay for the first month," Wyatt offered, but Lily shook her head. "I have a little money," she said, thinking of the few coins Mrs. Henderson had pressed into her hand when they left. It was not much, but it was enough for the first month's rent. "I can take care of it." Mrs. Patterson looked between them with interest, clearly trying to figure out their relationship. "Mr. Parker, you're staying out at the Donovan Ranch, correct?" "Yes, madam. I start work there tomorrow." "And Miss Carson, you're looking for employment?" "Yes, madam. I can cook, clean, and I'm not afraid of hard work." "Can you read and write?" "Yes, madam. My mother made sure I had a proper education." Mrs. Patterson nodded approvingly. "The Donovans are actually looking for someone to help Mrs. Donovan with the house and cooking for the ranch hands. It's hard work, but they pay fair and treat their people right. If you're interested, I can send word that you'd like to be considered for the position." Lily glanced at Wyatt, who smiled encouragingly but said nothing. It was her decision to make. "I'd be very interested," she said firmly. "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. I'll send word first thing tomorrow. In the meantime, let me show you to your room." After Lily was settled, Wyatt helped her carry her few belongings upstairs. The room was indeed small, just big enough for a narrow bed, a washstand, and a small dresser, but it was clean and bright with a window that overlooked the street. "It's perfect," Lily said, meaning it. This was hers, the first space that had truly belonged to her since her mother died. "I need to head out to the ranch," Wyatt said reluctantly. "But I'll come into town this weekend if that's all right. Maybe I could take you to dinner at the hotel restaurant." "I'd like that," Lily said, suddenly shy. After the intimacy of the past week, sharing meals and conversation and those wonderful stolen kisses, it felt strange to be saying goodbye, even temporarily. Wyatt must have felt it too, because he pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "This is a good thing," he said quietly. "You'll have your own space, your own job, your own life. But Lily, I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I meant what I said about courting you proper, and I intend to follow through." "I'm counting on it," she said, tilting her face up for a kiss. He obliged her sweetly, then reluctantly let her go. "I'll see you this weekend. Good luck with the interview." After he left, Lily stood at her window and watched him ride down the street toward the edge of town. Her heart ached a little at his absence, but it was a sweet ache, the kind that came from having something precious rather than from losing it. The next morning, a rider came from the Donovan ranch with a message that Mrs. Donovan would like to meet with Lily that afternoon. Mrs. Patterson loaned her a buggy, and Lily drove out to the ranch with a mixture of excitement and nervousness churning in her stomach. The Donovan ranch was impressive, with a large main house, several barns, and numerous outbuildings. Cattle grazed in the distant pastures, and she could see cowboys working with horses in one of the corrals. It was prosperous and well-maintained, exactly the kind of place Wyatt had described. Mrs. Donovan turned out to be a handsome woman in her early 40s with graying blonde hair and a warm smile. She invited Lily into the house, which was beautifully furnished with solid, comfortable furniture and bright curtains. "Mrs. Patterson speaks very highly of you, Mrs. Donovan said as they sat in the parlor with tea. "She says you're hard-working and educated." "I do my best, madam," Lily said. "I'm not afraid of hard work, and I'm eager to prove myself. Tell me about your experience. Where are you from?" Lily had anticipated this question and decided to be as honest as possible without revealing the most shameful details. "I'm from Arizona Territory, madam. My mother passed 2 years ago, and my father recently decided to move on. I wanted to start fresh somewhere new, so I came to California." It was not exactly a lie, just a careful editing of the truth. Mrs. Donovan seemed satisfied. "The job would involve cooking 3 meals a day for the ranch hands. We usually have about 10 men on the payroll. You'd also help me with the general housekeeping, laundry, and any other tasks that come up. It's demanding work, but I pay $15 a month plus room and board. You'd have your own cabin, small but private, and Sundays off, unless there's an emergency." $15 a month was more money than Lily had ever earned in her life. Combined with not having to pay for food or lodging, she would actually be able to save money. "That sounds more than fair, madam. I'd be honored to take the position." Mrs. Donovan smiled. "I'd like to give you a trial period if that's all right. 2 weeks to see if we suit each other. If everything works out, the job is yours permanently." "That sounds perfect. When would you like me to start? How about tomorrow? That will give you time to collect your things from town." They shook hands, and Lily felt like her heart might burst with happiness. She had a job, a real job with fair pay and decent people. And she would be working at the same ranch as Wyatt, seeing him regularly but maintaining her independence. When she drove back to town, she could not stop smiling. Mrs. Patterson was delighted by the news and helped her pack her few belongings. "The Donovans are good people," she said approvingly. "You've landed well, Miss Carson." That evening, Lily sat down and wrote a letter to Mrs. Henderson, thanking her for her kindness and letting her know that she had arrived safely in Watsonville and found employment. She did not mention Wyatt specifically, but she did say that she was happy and hopeful about the future, which was the truth. The next morning, Mr. Donovan himself came to town to collect her in a wagon. He was a tall, weathered man in his mid-50s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "My wife's been needing help for months," he said as they drove back to the ranch. "The last girl we had got married and moved to Sacramento. Welcome aboard, Miss Carson." When they arrived at the ranch, Mrs. Donovan showed her to a small cabin set a little apart from the main buildings. It had one room with a bed, a stove, a table and chairs, and even a small bookshelf. There was a basin for washing and pegs on the wall for hanging clothes. "It's not fancy, but it's yours," Mrs. Donovan said. "Breakfast for the men is at 6, lunch at noon, and dinner at 6 in the evening. Come up to the main house in the morning, and I'll show you the kitchen and the routine." After Mrs. Donovan left, Lily sat on her bed and looked around her cabin, her home. It was small and simple, but it was clean and safe and entirely hers. She thought about the cramped, filthy cabin she had shared with her father in Arizona, about the degrading days with Hoskins, and she could barely believe how much her life had changed in less than 2 weeks. That evening, she walked around the ranch property, getting her bearings. She saw the bunkhouse where the cowboys slept, the barns and corrals, the chicken coop and vegetable garden, and then she saw Wyatt, walking toward her with that smile that made her heart skip. "I heard you got the job," he said, stopping a respectful distance away. "Congratulations, Lily." "Thank you. Mrs. Donovan seems wonderful, she is. The whole family is good people, you'll be happy here." They stood there smiling at each other like fools until Lily laughed. "This is silly. Come here." He closed the distance between them and pulled her into his arms. "I missed you," he admitted, "which is ridiculous since it's only been a day." "I missed you too," she said, resting her head against his chest and listening to his heartbeat. "But we're both here now. We can see each other every day. We have to be careful," Wyatt warned. "I don't want anyone thinking you got this job because of me or that there's anything improper going on. Your reputation matters, Lily." "I know," she said, pulling back to look up at him. "We'll be discreet. But Wyatt, I'm not going to pretend I don't care about you. I'm not going to hide how I feel." "I don't want you to hide it," he said softly. "I just want to protect you. I want everyone to see what I see, that you're smart and capable and you earned this position on your own merits." "Then we'll show them," Lily said with determination. "I'll work harder than anyone has ever worked. I'll prove that I belong here." And she did exactly that. Starting the next morning, Lily threw herself into her work with fierce dedication. She was up before dawn to start breakfast, preparing huge amounts of eggs, bacon, biscuits, and coffee for the hungry ranch hands. She learned quickly, asking Mrs. Donovan questions and taking notes on everyone's preferences and dietary needs. The cowboys were initially skeptical of the new cook, but within days they were singing her praises. Her biscuits were light and fluffy, her stews hearty and flavorful, and she always made sure there was plenty for everyone. She was friendly but professional, making it clear that she was there to work, not to flirt. Wyatt was careful around her when others were present, treating her with the same polite respect he showed everyone else. But in stolen moments, when they passed each other between the kitchen and the barn, or when they happened to be walking in the same direction, they would exchange smiles and quiet words that meant everything. On her first Sunday off, Wyatt took her into town for that promised dinner. They ate at the hotel restaurant, and Wyatt insisted she order whatever she wanted. They talked and laughed for hours, oblivious to the curious looks from other diners. Afterward, they walked through the town as the sun set, and Wyatt told her about his week, about the horses he was training and the work he was doing. She told him about the ranch, about Mrs. Donovan's kindness, and how much she enjoyed cooking for appreciative eaters. "You're happy," Wyatt observed, smiling at her in the fading light. "I can see it in your face. You're glowing." "I am happy," Lily admitted. "For the first time in so long, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm building something, Wyatt. I'm creating a life that's mine." "I'm proud of you," he said, taking her hand as they walked. "You've done all of this yourself, Lily. I might have helped you get free, but everything since then has been all you." "We helped each other," she corrected gently. "You gave me the chance, but you also gave me something to hope for. You showed me what it looks like when someone treats you with respect and kindness. That was worth more than the gold you paid." He stopped walking and turned to face her, his hands coming up to frame her face. "Lily Carson, I am falling more in love with you every single day. You are the strongest, bravest, most beautiful woman I have ever known, and I thank God every day that I walked into that settlement when I did." "I love you too," she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "Don't be scared," he said, kissing her gently. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here and I'm staying." As summer turned to fall, their relationship deepened and flourished. They spent every Sunday together, exploring the countryside around Watsonville, having picnics by the river, or simply sitting together and talking for hours. Wyatt was patient and respectful, never pushing her for more than she was ready to give, content to hold her hand and steal kisses when they were alone. The ranch hands began to notice their growing relationship, but instead of gossip or disapproval, they seemed pleased. Wyatt was well liked and respected, and Lily had won everyone over with her hard work and good nature. One evening in October, about 4 months after Lily had arrived at the ranch, Mrs. Donovan invited her up to the main house for tea. They sat in the parlor as the sun set, and Mrs. Donovan studied her with a thoughtful expression. "Lily, I hope you don't mind me being direct, but there's something I've been wanting to say." Lily felt a flutter of nervousness. "Of course, madam. I've noticed that you and Wyatt Parker have grown close. It's clear to anyone with eyes that you care for each other." Lily felt her cheeks heat. "Yes, madam, we do, but I promise it hasn't affected my work and there's nothing improper happening." "I know that," Mrs. Donovan said with a kind smile. "You've both been very proper and professional. But Lily, you're a young woman in love, and I'd hate to see you or Wyatt have to hide your feelings unnecessarily. You have my blessing to court openly, if that's what you both want. You've proven yourself 10 times over, and no one could possibly think you got this job through anything but your own merit." Relief flooded through Lily. "Thank you, Mrs. Donovan. That means more to me than you know. You remind me of myself at your age," Mrs. Donovan said softly. "I came west as a young woman with nothing but hope and determination. I worked hard, I met a good man, and I built a life. You're doing the same thing, and I'm proud to have you as part of our ranch family." That Sunday, when Wyatt came to collect her for their usual outing, Lily told him about her conversation with Mrs. Donovan. His face lit up with relief and joy. "So we don't have to sneak around anymore?" he asked, grinning. "We were never sneaking around," Lily protested, laughing. "We were being discreet." "Well, I'm tired of being discreet," Wyatt said, and he pulled her into his arms right there in the yard, kissing her soundly despite the catcalls and whoops from the cowboys watching from the bunkhouse. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and laughing, Lily saw Mr. and Mrs. Donovan watching from the porch of the main house, both smiling approvingly. "I think they like us together," Wyatt said, waving at his employers. "I think everyone likes us together," Lily said, feeling happier than she ever thought possible. As winter approached, Wyatt began to talk more seriously about the future. They would take walks in the evening after Lily finished her work, bundled against the cooling air, and he would share his dreams with her. "I still want to own my own ranch someday," he told her one evening as they watched the sun set over the western hills. "Nothing huge, just enough land to raise some cattle and horses, maybe grow some crops, a place where we could build a real home." Lily asked softly. Wyatt turned to her, his expression serious. "Lily, I know we haven't been courting for very long by traditional standards, but I know my own heart. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to marry you if you'll have me." Her heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear over it. "Are you proposing to me, Wyatt Parker?" "Not officially, not yet," he said with a slight smile. "I want to do this right. I want to save up enough money to buy you a proper ring, and I want to ask you the right way. But I wanted you to know my intentions, so you can tell me if this is what you want too." "It is," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. "It's exactly what I want. I want to marry you, Wyatt. I want to build a life with you." He kissed her then, deep and passionate, pouring all of his love into the embrace. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "I'm going to work extra, take on any jobs I can find," Wyatt said. "I'll save every penny. By spring, I should have enough for a ring and a proper start on our life together." "I'll save too," Lily said. "Between my wages and yours, we can build something wonderful, Wyatt. We can make our dreams come true." True to their word, both of them worked tirelessly through the winter. Wyatt took on extra jobs, breaking horses for neighboring ranches and doing repairs around town. Lily saved every cent of her wages, spending nothing on herself beyond absolute necessities. They dreamed together, planning the ranch they would build, the home they would create. In January, tragedy struck when one of the ranch hands was injured in a riding accident. He broke his leg badly, and the doctor said he would be laid up for months. The atmosphere at the ranch was somber, everyone worried about their friend. Lily spent extra time cooking special foods to tempt the injured man's appetite and sitting with him when she could spare a moment, reading to him from the newspapers and books. Wyatt visited him every evening, keeping his spirits up with stories and jokes. "You two are good people," the injured cowboy, a man named Sam who was in his 30s, said one evening when both Lily and Wyatt were there. "When you get married, which everyone knows is going to happen, you're going to make each other real happy." "We're already happy," Wyatt said, smiling at Lily across the room. "The wedding will just make it official." Sam healed slowly but surely, and by late February he was up and moving around on crutches. The whole ranch celebrated his recovery with a big dinner that Lily prepared, featuring all of his favorite foods. Spring came early that year, arriving in March with warm sunshine and fields of wildflowers. One Sunday, Wyatt took Lily on a long ride into the hills above the ranch. They rode for hours, finally stopping at a beautiful spot overlooking the valley. The view was breathtaking, with rolling green hills stretching to the ocean in the distance. "I wanted to bring you somewhere special," Wyatt said, helping her down from her horse. "Somewhere beautiful, because what I'm about to ask you is the most important question I'll ever ask." Lily's breath caught as Wyatt took both her hands in his and then, to her joy and amazement, knelt down on one knee. "Lily Carson, I love you with everything I am. You're the strongest, kindest, most beautiful woman I've ever known. When I met you, you'd been through terrible things, but you never let them break you. You took the second chance at life and you ran with it, building something wonderful from nothing. I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you make me. Will you marry me?" He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple gold band with a small but beautiful diamond. It was not ostentatious or expensive, but it was clearly chosen with care and love. "Yes," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Wyatt, I'll marry you. I love you so much." He slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Then he stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with all the passion and promise of their future together. They were married in June, exactly 1 year after Lily had arrived in Watsonville. The ceremony was held in the small church in town, with the Donovans and all the ranch hands in attendance, along with many of the townspeople who had come to know and like the young couple. Lily wore a simple white dress that Mrs. Donovan had helped her make, and she carried wildflowers that matched the ones blooming in the hills where Wyatt had proposed. Wyatt wore his best suit, looking handsome and proud as he waited for her at the altar. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife, Wyatt kissed her deeply, and the whole church erupted in applause and cheers. At the reception afterward, held in the town hall, there was music and dancing and more food than Lily had ever seen in one place. "You did good, son," Mr. Donovan said to Wyatt, clapping him on the shoulder. "You found yourself a treasure." "Don't I know it?" Wyatt said, his eyes never leaving Lily as she laughed and danced with Mrs. Donovan. For their first year of marriage, Wyatt and Lily continued to work at the Donovan ranch, living in a slightly larger cabin that Mr. Donovan had provided for them. They saved every penny they could, building their nest egg for the ranch they dreamed of owning. Lily discovered she was pregnant that fall, and the joy on Wyatt's face when she told him was something she would never forget. He treated her like she was made of spun glass, constantly worried that she was working too hard or not resting enough. "I'm pregnant, not dying," she would tell him with exasperated affection. Women have been doing this since the beginning of time. But secretly, she loved his attentiveness, his constant care and concern. After years of being treated as worthless, having someone treasure her the way Wyatt did was a gift beyond measure. Their son was born in May of 1880, a healthy, squalling baby boy with Wyatt's blue eyes and Lily's dark hair. They named him Thomas, after Wyatt's father. Holding their son for the first time, looking at Wyatt's face as he gazed down at the baby with wonder and love, Lily felt overwhelmed with gratitude. 2 years ago, she had been at the absolute lowest point of her life, being traded like livestock with no hope for the future. Now she had a husband who loved her, a beautiful son, and a life full of promise. "What are you thinking?" Wyatt asked softly, noticing the tears on her cheeks. "I'm thinking about how you told me I was worth more than gold," she said, "and how you were right." "But Wyatt, you were worth more than gold too. You gave me my life back. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," he corrected gently, kissing her forehead. "We're partners, Lily. We always will be." When Thomas was 6 months old, Mr. Donovan approached Wyatt with an unexpected offer. "I've been thinking about expanding the ranch," he said. "There's a parcel of land adjacent to ours that's coming up for sale. It's about 300 acres of good grazing land with a water source. I'd like to buy it and set you up as a partner. You'd manage that section, run your own cattle, and we'd split the profits. Eventually, when you've earned enough, you could buy me out and own it outright." Wyatt was stunned. "Mr. Donovan, I don't know what to say. That's incredibly generous." "It's not just generosity," Mr. Donovan said. "You're the best worker I've ever had, and I trust you completely. This way, I expand my operation without having to manage everything myself, and you get the ranch you've been dreaming of. Everybody wins." Wyatt and Lily talked long into the night about the offer. It was not quite the same as buying their own land outright, but it was an incredible opportunity, better than anything they had dared hope for so soon. "Let's do it," Lily said finally. "It's a fair deal, and Mr. Donovan has always treated us well. We can build our house on that land, raise Thomas there, and eventually it will be truly ours." So they accepted the offer, and by the following spring they were breaking ground on their own house on their section of land. It was not large or fancy, but it was solidly built with 3 bedrooms, a real kitchen, and a parlor with windows that looked out over their land. The day they moved into their house, Wyatt carried Lily over the threshold while she held Thomas in her arms. They stood in the middle of their empty parlor and both of them cried happy tears. "We did it," Wyatt said, his voice thick with emotion. "We actually did it, Lily. We have our own home." "We have more than a home," Lily said, looking around at the bare walls and floor that they would fill with furniture and memories and love. "We have a future, Wyatt. We have everything we ever dreamed of." Over the next few years, they built their ranch into a thriving operation. Their cattle herd grew steadily, and Wyatt's reputation as a horse trainer spread throughout the region. Lily managed the household and helped with the bookkeeping, her education and sharp mind proving invaluable. Thomas grew into a bright, active boy who loved horses and the outdoors. In 1883, Lily gave birth to twin daughters, Emma and Grace, who had their mother's dark hair and their father's blue eyes. The house that had seemed so spacious suddenly felt full of noise and laughter and life. Wyatt proved to be a devoted father, patient and loving with all 3 children. He taught Thomas to ride almost as soon as the boy could walk, and he spent hours playing with the twins, letting them climb all over him while Lily laughed at the picture they made. One evening in the fall of 1885, after the children were asleep and they were sitting on their porch watching the sun set, Lily took Wyatt's hand and squeezed it gently. "I want to tell you something," she said. "What's that?" "I never thanked you properly for what you said to me that day in the settlement when you bought my freedom." Wyatt turned to look at her, confused. "Lily, you've thanked me 100 times. You don't need to keep doing that." "No, not for buying my freedom," she said. "For what you said afterward. You told me I was worth more than that horse and wagon. You said I was worth more than gold. Do you remember?" "Of course I remember. I meant every word." "I know you did. But Wyatt, I need you to know something. You were worth more than gold, too. You gave me back my dignity, my hope, my future. You saw value in me when everyone else saw trash. You loved me when I didn't think I was worthy of being loved. You are worth more than any treasure in the world, and I thank God every day that you walked into that settlement when you did." Wyatt pulled her close and she felt the wetness of his tears on her hair. "We saved each other," he said quietly. "I was drifting, Lily, working and saving but never really living. You gave me purpose. You gave me a reason to build something lasting. You gave me a family and a home and love. So thank you too." They sat together as the stars came out, wrapped in each other's arms, grateful for the journey that had brought them together and excited for all the years still ahead. By 1890, Wyatt had saved enough to buy out Mr. Donovan's share of the land. They now owned their 300 acres outright, along with a sizable herd of cattle and horses. They had hired 2 ranch hands to help with the work, and they were respected members of the Watsonville community. Thomas, now 10 years old, was already proving himself to be a natural rancher, working alongside his father whenever he was not in school. The twins, at 7, were bright and mischievous, keeping Lily on her toes with their endless energy and curiosity. One afternoon in the summer of 1891, a stranger rode up to the ranch. Lily was in the garden with the girls when she saw him, and something about the set of his shoulders made her heart skip a beat. She could not see his face beneath his hat, but there was something familiar in the way he sat his horse. Wyatt came out of the barn and approached the stranger, and Lily saw them talk for a few minutes. Then, to her shock, Wyatt embraced the man warmly. Later, Wyatt brought the stranger up to the house, and Lily finally got a good look at him. He was in his late 30s or early 40s, with the same blue eyes and strong jaw as Wyatt, though his face was more weathered and his expression more guarded. "Lily, I want you to meet my brother, William," Wyatt said, his voice thick with emotion. "William, this is my wife, Lily." Lily's eyes widened. This was the brother Wyatt had not seen in over 15 years, the brother he had left behind in Texas. "It's wonderful to meet you," she said warmly, offering her hand. William shook it awkwardly. "Madam, Wyatt's told me a lot about you in the past hour. Seems like my little brother did all right for himself." "We did all right for each other," Lily corrected gently. "Please come inside. You must be tired from your journey." Over dinner that evening, William told them his story. After their parents died and Wyatt left for California, William had run the family ranch alone for years. He had married, had 2 children, but his wife had died in childbirth along with their 3rd baby. His 2 children, both boys, were now teenagers. "I've been carrying a lot of guilt," William admitted, looking at Wyatt. "I said some harsh things to you when you left, Wyatt. I accused you of abandoning the family when you were really just trying to make room for me to succeed. I'm sorry for that. I've wanted to find you and apologize for years, but I didn't know where to start looking." "How did you find me?" Wyatt asked. "Ran into a man in San Antonio who said he'd worked with a Wyatt Parker at the goldfields in California years ago. He remembered you talking about heading to Watsonville. I took a chance and came west. I'm glad I did." The 2 brothers talked long into the night, healing old wounds and rebuilding their relationship. William stayed for 2 weeks, getting to know his nieces and nephew and seeing the life Wyatt had built. "You did good, brother," William said the day before he left. "You found something real here. A good woman, beautiful children, a successful ranch. I'm proud of you." "Come back and visit," Wyatt said, embracing his brother. "Bring your boys, they should know their cousins." "I will," William promised. "And Wyatt, thank you for forgiving me." "There's nothing to forgive," Wyatt said. "We were both young and hurting. What matters is we've found each other again." After William left, Lily found Wyatt standing on their porch, looking out over their land with a peaceful expression. "You're happy he came," she observed, slipping her arm through his. "I am. I didn't realize how much I missed him until I saw him again. It's like a piece of my past that I thought was lost forever has been restored." "That's how I felt the day you bought my freedom," Lily said softly. "Like a part of myself that I thought was gone forever was suddenly restored. You gave that back to me, Wyatt." He pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "We've been through a lot, haven't we, both of us?" "We have. But we came through it together and we're stronger for it." As the years passed, their family continued to grow and thrive. Thomas took over more and more of the ranch operations as he got older, proving himself to be as skilled and hardworking as his father. The twins grew into beautiful, intelligent young women who had their mother's strength and their father's kindness. In 1895, Lily gave birth to another son, whom they named William after Wyatt's brother. The older children adored their baby brother, and Thomas in particular took his role as big brother seriously, always watching out for the little ones. William and his sons did visit several times over the years, and the cousins became close despite the distance between them. The Parker family was slowly healing the rifts of the past and building something strong for the future. One evening in the spring of 1898, 20 years after that fateful day in the Arizona settlement, Wyatt and Lily sat on their porch and watched their children play in the yard. Thomas, now 18, was teaching little William how to rope a fence post. The twins, 15 and growing more beautiful every day, were laughing together over some shared joke. "Do you ever think about that day?" Lily asked quietly. "The day we met." "Every day," Wyatt admitted. "I think about what might have happened if I hadn't been in that settlement at that exact moment, if I hadn't had that gold in my pocket, if I hadn't cared enough to intervene." "I would have died," Lily said simply. "Maybe not right away, but eventually. Hoskins would have worked me to death or sold me to someone worse. I had no hope, Wyatt. None at all. And then you appeared like something out of a dream and you told me I was worth more than gold." "You are worth more than gold," Wyatt said, taking her hand. "You're worth everything, Lily. You always have been." "So are you," she said, squeezing his hand. "You saved my life that day, but you did more than that. You showed me that I deserved to be saved, that I was worth saving. You gave me back my humanity, my dignity, my hope. And then you loved me, truly and completely, never asking for anything in return except to be allowed to stand beside me." "There's nowhere else I'd rather be," Wyatt said, his voice husky with emotion. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching their children and counting their blessings. They had built a good life together, a life full of love and laughter and hard-earned success. They had faced challenges and overcome them, always together, always supporting each other. As the sun set over their land, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Lily leaned her head on Wyatt's shoulder and thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with fear and desperation, with a cruel transaction that had reduced her to the value of livestock. But it had transformed into something beautiful, something worth more than any amount of gold. She had been traded for a horse and a wagon, considered worthless by the man who should have valued her most. But Wyatt had seen the truth. He had paid for her freedom not because he wanted to own her, but because he believed she deserved to be free. He had told her she was worth more than gold, and then he had spent the next 20 years proving it every single day. In 1900, as the new century dawned, the Parker family gathered together on their ranch to celebrate. Thomas had recently married a sweet young woman from town, and they were expecting their first child. The twins were being courted by 2 respectable young men, and little William, now 5 years old, was already showing signs of inheriting his father's way with horses. At the celebration, Wyatt stood up to make a toast. He looked around at his family, his children and soon-to-be grandchild, his brother William who had traveled from Texas with his sons for the occasion, and finally at Lily, still as beautiful to him as the day he first saw her in that settlement. "I want to say something," Wyatt began, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. 22 years ago, I made what some people thought was a foolish decision. I spent every cent I had saved to buy the freedom of a woman I just met. People asked me why I would do such a thing, why I would give up my dreams for a stranger." He looked directly at Lily, his eyes shining with love. "But she was never a stranger. The moment I saw her, I knew she was someone special, someone worth fighting for. I told her that day that she was worth more than gold, and I meant it. But what I didn't know then was that she would become so much more than I could have ever imagined. She became my wife, my partner, the mother of my children, and the love of my life." Tears were streaming down Lily's face as Wyatt continued. "Lily, you took the second chance I gave you and you built something incredible. You're the strongest person I know, and I'm honored to have spent these past 20 years beside you. Here's to the next 20 and all the ones after that." Everyone raised their glasses, cheering and applauding. Lily stood and walked to Wyatt, and they embraced as their family and friends celebrated around them. "I love you," she whispered in his ear. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Thank you for valuing me when I couldn't value myself. Thank you for giving me a life worth living." "Thank you for letting me be part of it," Wyatt whispered back. "Thank you for choosing me every day for the past 20 years. You're worth more than gold, Lily Parker. You're worth everything." As they kissed, surrounded by the family and life they had built together, both of them knew that they had found something rare and precious. They had found true love, the kind that transforms and heals, the kind that builds rather than destroys. Lily had started with nothing, traded away like property, considered worthless and disposable. But Wyatt had seen the truth, had recognized her value when no one else would. He had set her free and in doing so had freed himself to love and be loved in return. Their grandchildren would grow up hearing the story of how their grandparents met, how a brave cowboy had rescued their grandmother and told her she was worth more than gold. And those children would carry that message forward, understanding that every person has value, that love is about seeing and cherishing that value in others. The Parker Ranch continued to prosper for generations, a testament to the strong foundation that Wyatt and Lily had built together. Their children and grandchildren learned from their example, understanding that true wealth is not measured in gold or cattle or land, but in the love you share and the family you build. And every year, on the anniversary of that day in the settlement when Wyatt had bought Lily's freedom, the entire Parker family would gather together to celebrate. They called it Freedom Day, and it was a time to remember where they came from, to honor the courage and love that had started it all, and to recommit themselves to the values that Wyatt and Lily had taught them. Wyatt and Lily lived long, happy lives, surrounded by children and grandchildren, and eventually great-grandchildren. They worked their ranch together until they were too old to do the heavy labor, and then they sat on their porch and watched the younger generations carry on the legacy they had built. In the spring of 1925, Wyatt passed away peacefully in his sleep, with Lily holding his hand. He was 70 years old and had lived a life full of love and purpose. At his funeral, Lily stood before the gathered crowd, her hair now white but her eyes still bright, and she told the story one last time of the day they met. "He told me I was worth more than gold," she said, her voice strong despite her grief. "And then he spent 47 years proving it. He was the best man I ever knew, and I thank God every day that he walked into that settlement and saw value in me when no one else did. He saved my life, and then he loved me, and that made all the difference." Lily lived for 3 more years after Wyatt's death, surrounded by her loving family. She spent her final days in the house they had built together, looking out over the land they had worked so hard to make their own. She told stories to her great-grandchildren about their great-grandfather, making sure they understood what kind of man he had been, what kind of love he had shown. When Lily passed away in her sleep in 1928, at the age of 71, she was buried beside Wyatt on a hill overlooking their ranch. Her gravestone reads simply, "Lily Carson Parker, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother, worth more than gold." The Parker family continued to thrive long after Wyatt and Lily were gone, but they never forgot the story of how it all began. They never forgot the cowboy who had seen a woman in trouble and decided to help, who had spent his life savings to set her free. They never forgot the woman who had survived terrible things and come out stronger, who had built a life and a family from nothing but hope and determination. And they never forgot the lesson that Wyatt and Lily had taught them, the lesson that had been proven true through decades of love and commitment, that every person has value. That love is about seeing and honoring that value in others. That true wealth is not measured in gold or possessions, but in the relationships we build and the love we share. She had been traded for a horse and a wagon, treated as worthless property. But the cowboy had seen the truth. He had told her she was worth more than gold. And together, they had proven that love and faith and courage can transform everything, can take the darkest moment and turn it into the beginning of something beautiful. Their love story became legend in Watsonville, passed down through generations as an example of what true love looks like. It was a story of courage and redemption, of seeing value where others saw none, of building something beautiful from the ashes of despair. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth, spoken by a cowboy to a desperate young woman in a dusty settlement on a spring day in 1878. A truth that changed both their lives and echoed through all the years that followed. You are worth more than gold.